What's up, guys? I'm Cody Brockway, and you are back here for another episode of Brockway's Vinyl Bites, where we're asking you the big questions. The question is, of course, who are the best bands of all time? Well, everyone's answer is obviously going to be very different, especially depending on what you listen to. Of course, you guys know that I'm big into the rock of all sorts, whether it's prog, hard rock, or classic rock, and the heavy metal. Huge into that stuff. But my taste is very broad, and I know that it is for the same case for most of you guys as well. So, who are the top 10 bands of all time for you guys? I want to know. Tell me in the comments. Let me know. And, I could have easily done a top 30 bands list here, but I went I'm going to whittle this down to top 10. This has taken a long time to set this up, but I came up with a top 10 that I'm comfortable with, and I've got a couple of honorable mentions that I'm going to get out of the way right here, right now, before we get into the top 10. So we're going to start off with the honorable mentions of Led Zeppelin. Been a huge Zeppelin fan my whole life. They kind of set me on a path with my music, and I credit them for being one of my biggest influences in getting me into drumming. Led Zeppelin, Megadeth, same thing, getting into heavy metal really hard, and they just hit me like a truck, just amazing band. Absolutely worthy of being in the honorable mentions, of course. AC/DC, going back to when I was a kid, just a massive impact, and it kind of, I can see where my love of heavy metal starts, even though they're just a great hard rock band, absolutely. Love all the AC/DC albums. I got pretty much all of them, I think. Aerosmith's another one, honorable mention, absolutely. Huge Aerosmith fan, always have been, always will be. Going over to the prog here for a little bit. Of course, in the honorable mentions, we got King Crimson. King Crimson can really do no wrong, whether it's in the Court of the Crimson King era, or the Larks, Tongues, and Aspic era, or the Discipline era, which is some of my favorite music ever. Whether it's John Wetton, Adrian Belew, or whatever, I love King Crimson so much. All the lineups of that band, Bill Bruford, just an absolute legend of a drummer. Oh man, that guy screwed my life up in the best possible way. Robert Fripp and company in King Crimson. Opeth, another one that I've been into for the last number of years. Absolutely worthy of being on the honorable mentions list, because I don't think they did a bad record. They did different albums, right? They're one of these bands that followed their own path, and they just, go. All of these bands, actually, that I'm mentioning here in the top 10 and the honorable mentions, they all followed their own path, and they do things the way they want to do them. And that's important, because that's key to the sound of Opeth. Whether they want to do a jazz record or an extreme death metal record, they're going to do it. And you can like it or not. Great stuff. Motorhead, huge Motorhead fan. So they're absolutely worthy of being in the honorable mentions. Just good kick-ass heavy metal rock and roll. Lemmy coming off the heels of Hawkwind, creating his sound over there and really taking it to this next level with Motorhead. Great stuff. We go to the 90s, because I'm a huge fan of 90s metal. We got Korn and System of a Down, two bands that were absolutely massive on my listening experiences going back to when I was a kid and growing up. Still a big fan of both. Still follow them and whatever they do. Of course, in the case of System of a Down, it's not much, but they're going on tour, so I'm going to go see them. That'll be pretty cool. Now we're going to get into the top 10. Yes. Finally hitting the top 10. Got the honorable mentions out of the way. We're going to start with Pink Floyd. I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. I don't think Pink Floyd did any bad records. I'm not a fan of the Endless River or the Final Cut very much, but they have their place in the discography, absolutely. I love the David Gilmour era in the 80s. I love the four-man era in the 70s with David Gilmour, Richard Wright, Nick Mason, Roger Waters, and of course the 60s Syd Barrett stuff is absolutely top of the pile as well. The way that they were just constantly pushing the envelope, and album sales, whatever, it didn't matter. They just kept their eye on the prize, and what they, like, no amount of money changed their sound. And like I said before, all the bands in this top 10 absolutely stayed true to what they decided to do, and they made the choices for themselves. And absolutely, and Pink Floyd, they could have taken the easy way out after Dark Side of the Moon and made an easy listening pop album, but no, they kept up with the introspective lyrics and the really beautifully crafted atmosphere in all of everything that they did. I mean, following up Dark Side of the Moon with Wish You Were Here, and that awesome, beautiful guitar playing at the beginning of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Oh my God. Pink Floyd, just absolutely wow. Breathtaking band. Number 10 is Pink Floyd. Number 9, Rush. Yeah, huge Rush fan. Neil Peart absolutely ruined my brain. His beautifully introspective lyrics, just like Pink Floyd, but really relatable stuff, as is Pink Floyd when you listen to some of the stuff he would sing about. Of course, in the 70s, most of his writing was sort of about sci fi, things like that. And in the 80s, he started, writing songs like Time Stands Still and songs that really made you think, Even going back to the 70s, he was always a very thoughtful and intelligent lyric writer, and the musicianship in Rush was just absolutely breathtaking, still inspiring millions of musicians to pick up instruments to this day. And they have certainly been a massive influence on me, because I don't think Rush did a bad album. Not the self-titled in 1974, not Hold Your Fire in 1987, not Counterparts in 1993, not Test for Echo. None of those are bad records. Of course, some songs are not as great as others, right? But, hey, Rush were always consistent, and they were always pushing the envelope to see where they could take their sound and where they wanted to go with it. And so Rush, absolutely massive, and just one of my all-time favorites. And another guy who was always pushing the envelope, and you'll see that that is a trend with these bands that I love, bands that always push the envelope. And number 8 for me, Frank Zappa. A huge Zappa fan, whether it's the Mothers of Invention, whether it's the Synclav stuff he was doing in the 80s, whether it's the instrumental jazz records like Waka Jawaka or the Grand Wazoo, things like that, Hot Rats, whatever, or the more commercial albums like Overnight Sensation, Joe's Garage, Apostrophe. I think Frank was a really intelligent man and a really well thought out musician, and everything that he had to say artistically was worth listening to. And so that's why I have over 100 of his CDs, and I don't think any of them are bad. They're all different, and they're all interesting in their own way. Frank Zappa in any incarnation of the bands that he had, because he always had different guys playing with him, and they were always great. Number 7 is Dream Theater. Yeah, as you can see on my shirt, I'm a massive Dream Theater fan. There's only 2 records that I'm not really that into, and that's probably the first one and The Astonishing. Other than that, I have no bones to pick with pretty much any of their records. I'm a huge Dream Theater fan, and obviously the return of Mike Portnoy has been just totally awesome to be a fan through this. And the Mike Mangini stuff throughout the 2010s is also excellent as well. I mean, talk about a band that totally pushed boundaries right from the get-go. I mean, most people heard them in the 90s for the first time with Pull Me Under, a 10-minute hit single that's getting played all over MTV and things like that. And then that's the only hit that they really had, because they refused to succumb to record companies' wants and wishes. And they've amassed a massive following in the years since. Dream Theater, just incredible, and their albums are so sonically eclectic. You get an album like Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, and you get the beautiful ballads like Through Her Eyes and The Spirit Carries On, and then of course you get the technical brilliance that is stuff like Dance of Eternity and Overture 1928. And that's kind of how they set up their albums. So people that think that it's just musical wankery, you are absolutely incorrect. Everything that Dream Theater ever did, they did it with soul, and you just got to listen to find out. That's all there really is to it. And their music has touched me for many years, and I wouldn't be the same without them in my life. Huge Dream Theater fan. Number 6 is Yes, probably the first prog band that I ever heard. Of course, I didn't really know what prog was, but I'm still a big Yes fan. Admittedly, I'm not a fan of the last couple of albums that they've done, but I have respect for everyone who's ever played in the band. Even the current lineup, I've seen them live, and they're all great players, and they're just really exquisite dudes, and I met some of them, and they're really just cool guys, so I appreciate what they do. But we're here for the classic stuff, right? I mean, the stuff with Chris Squire and John Anderson, absolutely brilliant. I was born around the time The Ladder came out, and so that was really influential on me, because my dad was playing that album all the time, and he would play all the old stuff. He had that 4-disc Atlantic Yes box set, and we would listen to that all the time growing up. And so that would set me on the path with the prog, right? Of course, back then when I was a kid, it was just like, oh, this is classic rock, because Q107 in Toronto would play that stuff, right? Roundabout, I've Seen All Good People, but it's prog, and as I would find out later in life, it's prog. And Yes is one of my absolute favorite bands. So Jeff Shilka, be happy knowing that Yes made the top 10, because they're amazing. Love them. Now we're hitting up the top 5. Wow, this top 5 has been this way for a very long time. And we're just going to go right into the top 5 here now with Metallica. I absolutely adore Metallica. I love all of their records. I'm not as big on Saint Anger, obviously due to the production and lack of guitar solos and things like that. But the dog's going for it upstairs. Sorry about that, folks. But Metallica, just a huge fan. I've seen them a bunch of times live, and they never disappoint. Their music really gives me a sense of power when I listen to it, and it's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of connection, and I love all their albums. I love Load and Reload. I know that's not everyone's favorite albums, right? But I think Load and Reload have some of their best songs on them. And again, they did what they wanted to do for Metallica, and I have to really commend them for their choices and their differences and things that they've done along the way, because it's still metal, man. I mean, they're just a great band. And of course, then the return to heavy thrash with Death Magnetic in 2008. Absolutely blow me away. And 72 Seasons is a killer album. But yeah, Metallica, number 5. And then going up to number 4 is Iron Maiden. Yeah, you guys know, as well as Metallica, I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan. There's only probably one record in their catalog that I don't like, and that'd be Virtual 11. Even with that, they have a couple of songs that really translate well live from that record. But I mean, all their albums like Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Killers, and of course the newer ones like Matter of Life and Death, Brave New World, Senjutsu. Oh my God, this band, their creativity never ever wanes, and Steve Harris is always coming at it with a fresh perspective. And of course, yes, they have their sound, they know what they sound like, but they've gotten proggier and proggier with each release, and they're just going for it, just a great band. Iron Maiden, seen them a bunch of times, great. And of course you got number 3, the Beatles. I'm a huge Beatles nut. I mean, if you've watched my room tour video or my CD collection video, you would have seen the whole Beatles corner that I have on the other side of the room. The Beatles absolutely never did any wrong. Paul McCartney is one of my favorite songwriters of all time. I love his Wings stuff, love his solo stuff, but the Beatles, I listen to them nearly every day. I mean, albums like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Revolver, Rubber Soul, absolutely massive. And fond memories of growing up with my mom and dad listening to the Beatles. I mean, the Beatles were my introduction to music. They weren't one of them. They were the first band for me. And so they will always be up high for me. Beatles, absolutely massive. Number 3. Number 2, we're cutting it down to number 2 and number 1 here, folks. Ooh. Number 2, Queen. I'm a huge Queen fan. Looking through Queen's discography is just absolutely unreal. They really changed the game in the sense that they were a very proggy band, and I know some of you guys are going to come at me and go, Queen, we're not a prog band. They weren't a prog band, but they had a lot of progressive elements with their sound. Obviously, they were very influenced by Genesis and all that stuff that was happening at the time. It would have been Yes and King Crimson, and then, of course, heavier stuff as well. But Queen is just an absolutely unreal band. I mean, listen to what they did on the records. Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack, Night at the Opera, Day at the Races. Those records are outstanding. And most people only know Queen for that Greatest Hits album. And while that Greatest Hits album is amazing, you got to go back and listen to some of the studio albums, because some of the production values that were used on those records with Roy Thomas Baker and the 4 guys in Queen, absolutely unreal. And the writing of all the guys and everyone in Queen was a top of the pile songwriter. And so having all of those creative minds working together over the 12 or 15 albums that Queen did, absolutely astonishing body of work. Just absolutely brilliant band. And there's no Queen album that sucks. Not one. Number 1, my favorite band of all time. And they do have albums that I'm not a big fan of, but they have a period from about 1971 to 1991 that I just pretty much adore. Everything in between is Genesis. That's right. Obviously, Genesis are my favorite band of all time. And here's a picture of me with their ex-guitarist, Steve Hackett. Love Steve. And, Genesis and all the solo members, Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel, Steve Hackett, Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, all made amazing solo albums and side projects. And all the albums that they made with Genesis, even if they're lesser favorites for me, like Trespass has never been a favorite of mine, Calling All Stations, those albums are the lesser Genesis albums in a sense, right? But they're all worth listening to and owning. And of course, that period from the whole time Phil Collins was in the band, just wow. I mean, my gosh, going back to the early days with Peter Gabriel, just that proggy brilliance. And then, of course, going to the 80s, they still have the art pop, proggy vibe, but with a different sort of pop sensibility to it. Genesis always had a sort of poppier sense, but obviously probably more so in the 80s. Still great songs, great albums, great music all the way through. And Genesis, like many of these bands on this list, were there for me, obviously, in the best and worst times of life. And so for that, I thank all of them. But yeah, so Pink Floyd, Rush, Frank Zappa, Dream Theater, yes, Metallica, Iron Maiden, the Beatles, Queen, and Genesis. There's my top 10 favorite bands of all time. And another honorable mention that I failed to mention at the beginning of this video is Tool. I'm a huge Tool fan. Absolutely, they could be in the top 11 any day. Great bands. But yeah, this has been my top 10 favorite bands. And I want to hear for you guys, who are the best bands of all time? I know this could change by the day too, so none of this is static, right? But how are you feeling today? Let me know who are your top 10 favorite bands of all time are, and I want to hear from you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I am Cody Brockway, and this has been another episode of Brockway's Vinyl Bites, and we'll see you next time. Rock on!